Hey guys, this is True Crime with Tiff Klein, giving criminals the disrespect they deserve. This is Season 2, Episode 12, and today I'm diving into one of the most heartbreaking cases in music history. Today, March 31st, 2026, marks exactly 31 years since the murder of Selena Quintanilla Pérez. This episode is told with deep respect for Selena, her family, and the millions who still carry her legacy. I want to talk about Selena, not just the icon, not just the legend, but the human behind the voice. Selena Quintanilla Pérez was born on April 16th, 1971 in Lake Jackson, Texas. Her father, Abraham, had once been a musician himself, and when he heard Selena sing as a child, he knew this wasn't just talent, this was destiny. He formed a family band called Selena y los Dinos. Her brother AB played bass, her sister Suzette played drums, and Selena was front and center. She was a little girl with a big voice that could stop time. But life wasn't glamorous. The family lost their restaurant during the Texas oil bust, a project that Abraham worked so hard on, gave everything up for, but they were evicted. They lived in a bus, traveling from gig to gig to gig, performing at fairs, weddings, basically anywhere that would pay. And Selena learned early on that success wasn't glamorous. It was sweat, it was sacrifice, and it was survival. She learned that dreams are built, not given. And by her teens, she was already a star in the Tejano world, a genre dominated by men. Selena wasn't just talented. She was magnetic, and people knew who she was, and they described her as goofy. She loved to joke, mimic voices, and make people laugh, and she was warm. She hugged everyone, from fans to stagehands, and they said she was down to earth. She talked to you like she'd known you forever, and nobody was a stranger. She was playful, and she loved to prank her bandmates constantly. Selena was very empathetic, and she felt deeply responsible for the people around her. She had this rare ability to make people feel seen, and even at the height of her fame, she never acted like she was above anyone. Most people knew Selena, the singer, but there was also Selena, the fashion designer, who was just as passionate. She sketched constantly, napkins, on receipts, even hotel stationery, and she designed bustiers, jumpsuits, stage outfits, boutique clothing lines, and even accessories. And remember that purple iconic jumpsuit that she wore at her last concert at the Houston Astrodome? Selena designed that herself. She dreamed of launching a full fashion line and opening boutiques across the country. She wanted to create clothes that made women feel confident and beautiful, especially Latina women who rarely saw themselves represented in fashion. She worked harder than most adults by the time she was 12. She had a really packed schedule, and it often looked like school, rehearsals, shows, traveling, interviews, designing clothes, recording music, but she slept on buses and she ate in parking lots. She performed sick, tired, and even injured because she didn't want to disappoint her fans. Her father pushed her hard, and sometimes too hard, but Selena was always up for the challenge, and she always rose above. Selena didn't treat her fans like fans. She treated them like family. She would remember names and remembered faces, and she hugged people like she meant it. She stayed after shows until every autograph was signed. She said this is why her fan club grew so fast. She was incredibly close to her family. AB, her brother, was her musical soulmate. Suzette, her sister, was her protector, and Marcella, her mother, she was her emotional anchor. And then Abraham, her father, her manager and driving force. They weren't just a family, they were a team. They fought, they struggled, they sacrificed, but they stayed together. Selena often said her biggest dream was to buy her parents a beautiful home and give them the life they gave her. Selena didn't just break barriers, she danced right through them. She was supposed to change everything for women in the music industry. A young woman with a voice that could melt steel and a smile that could stop a storm. A daughter who carried her family's dreams. A wife who loved fiercely, and a superstar who never forgot where she came from. She was charismatic. She was magnetic. Her voice was powerful but warm. Her stage presence was electric. And Selena didn't just perform, she connected. She won Best Female Vocalist of the Year at the Tejano Music Awards multiple times. She signed with EMI Latin. She released hit after hit, and she opened boutiques. She designed clothes, and she became a fashion icon. And in 1994, she even won a Grammy for Best Mexican American Album. Selena wasn't just rising, she was ascending. While on tour, Selena met the love of her life, guitarist Chris Pérez. Their chemistry was instant, kind of connection that doesn't ask permission. Her father didn't approve, and Chris and Selena had to learn how to navigate their marriage and careers at the same time. And they were opposites in the best way. She was bubbly, he was quiet. She was outgoing, he was introspective. She loved glitter, he loved metal music. But they fit. They balanced each other. They made each other better. Chris has said that Selena was the first person who made him feel truly understood. Their marriage was young, but it was real. They talked about having kids. They talked about growing old together. And Abraham feared Chris would distract Selena. He feared losing control of the band's dynamic, and Selena and Chris did what young people in love often do. They eloped. On April 2nd, 1992, Selena and Chris came up with a plan to elope in order to force Abraham to accept their love. And despite the chaos around them, their marriage was tender, grounded, and deeply bonded. Selena wanted a family, a fashion empire, a crossover career. She wanted a home filled with love. And she wanted a life where she could slow down and enjoy what she built. She always talked about having kids. She talked about wanting to take her parents on vacations. She talked about wanting to design clothes full time someday. She had so much left to do and so much left to give. Chris had said that Selena was his best friend, the person who made him feel safe. Their love story was real, but it was cut short. On March 31st, 1995, just 3 days before the couple celebrated their third wedding anniversary, Selena was shot and killed by Yolanda Saldívar, her fan club president and the manager of Selena's boutiques. Selena met Yolanda in 1991 and became instant friends. Yolanda begged Abraham to start a fan club, and he agreed. She started taking over the finances and making sure Selena had her fan club up and going. But something wasn't sitting right. On the morning that she died, Selena left home and confronted Saldívar about embezzling over $30,000 from the boutiques and fan club, demanding paperwork that would prove her innocence. Yolanda was a former nurse, a superfan, someone who seemed devoted, but almost too devoted. She became a trusted figure, and trust can be a weapon. She handled money. She became manager of Selena's boutiques. She handled merchandise. She dealt with the fans, and she handled it badly. By early 1995, complaints poured in, and fans weren't receiving items they paid for. Money was missing. Checks were forged, and the Quintanilla family confronted Yolanda, and she denied everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. They fired her. And that's when Yolanda's obsession with Selena turned dangerous. Yolanda did not accept being cut off. She clung to Selena. She manipulated her. She played victim. She claimed she had been assaulted in Mexico. She cried, she begged, and she used Selena's kindness against her. Selena still needed one thing from Yolanda, though, and that was those business records, and Yolanda kept stalling. She knew those documents were her last piece of leverage, and she wasn't letting go. The morning of her death, Selena left her husband Chris sleeping at home and headed to the motel where Saldívar had requested they meet to hand over the documents. The two argued at the motel in Corpus Christi. Yolanda claimed she had the documents on March 30th and met Selena at the Days Inn. She didn't have those documents that she claimed she did, and that's when she claimed she was assaulted, but she wasn't. And Selena left frustrated, exhausted, and emotionally drained. The next morning, March 31st, 1995, exactly 31 days from today, Selena returned to that hotel room. She wanted those records. She wanted closure. She just wanted to move on. Inside room 158, another argument broke out. Another excuse, another manipulation. Then Yolanda pulled out a .38 caliber revolver. Selena turned to leave, and Yolanda fired. The bullet struck Selena in the back, severing an artery. But Selena ran. She ran for her life. She made it to the lobby, leaving a trail of blood behind her. And she collapsed. And with her final breath of strength, she said, Yolanda, room 150, 1:05 p.m., Selena Quintanilla Pérez was pronounced dead. She was 23. She died from blood loss and cardiac arrest during emergency surgery at Corpus Christi Memorial Hospital. After the shooting, Yolanda fled to her pickup truck, and for 9 hours, she held a gun to her head, threatening suicide. Police negotiators talked her down, and she finally surrendered. But the damage was done. A global community was shattered. In October of 1995, Yolanda Saldívar was convicted of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Her first parole review was in 2025, and that was denied. She was declined. See what I did there? Her next review is scheduled for 2030, and hopefully she will be declined then as well. Justice was served, but justice can't bring back Selena, and her death sparked an outpouring grief like anything Texas or the world had ever seen. Fans lined the streets to pay respects. Radio stations played her music nonstop. People cried for a woman they felt that they knew, and her posthumous album, Dreaming of You, debuted at number 1. Her museum in Corpus Christi still draws thousands of people to this day, and her influence lives in every Latina artist who followed. Her smile, her voice, her spirit never faded. Selena didn't just break barriers. She built bridges. She made people feel seen. She made people feel proud, and that is a legacy no bullet can erase. She wasn't just a singer. Selena was a movement. She represented Mexican-American identity, bicultural pride, Latina beauty, Tejano music, working-class families, and dreamers. She made young Latina girls feel seen in a world that rarely acknowledged them. She showed them they could be glamorous, powerful, successful, and still be themselves. And her crossover album wasn't just a career move, it was a cultural milestone. In 1997, the film Selena, a biographical musical drama, focused on Selena's life, rise to fame and tragic death, starring Jennifer Lopez in a role that launched her career and earned her a Golden Globe nomination. And Selena's family were heavily involved in production, ensuring accuracy and respectful portrayal, and even her husband, Chris, filmed close-up guitar shots, especially for the movie. The film is widely considered as the definitive portrait of Selena's life, a respectful tribute approved by her family, a cultural milestone for Latino representation in Hollywood, and a role that launched Jennifer Lopez into superstardom. Even I read somewhere that Jennifer actually was invited to stay with Selena's parents during filming, slept in her bed, wore her clothes, and every time she has a concert, she does a tribute to Selena. And still thanks her and gives her credit for where she's at today. Selena remains one of the most beloved biopics ever made. It earned a Golden Globe nomination. Jennifer Lopez for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. Had 6 nominations and 4 wins at the Alma Awards and MTV Movie Award for Best Breakthrough Performance with Jennifer Lopez. It also is in the National Film Registry, selected in 2021 for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Even today in 2026, Selena's legacy is stronger than ever, with new tributes, museum exhibits, and public statements from her family, and continued legal updates about Yolanda Saldívar. Today, on the 31st anniversary of Selena's murder, media outlets across the U.S. published tributes reflecting on her impact. Fans, museums, and cultural organizations honored her as one of the most influential Latina artists in history. Selena remains a trailblazer in Tejano and Latin pop, and still inspiring new generations. Her crossover album, Dreaming of You, continues to break records decades later, and she is still widely celebrated for her Grammy wins, her fashion influence, and her cultural impact. Yolanda Saldívar, Selena's killer, was denied parole in 2025 and remains incarcerated in Texas. In 2026, Selena is still considered Queen of Tejano music, but her abuser is still considered a continuing threat by the parole board. She remains in prison at the Patrick O'Daniel unit in Gatesville, Texas, and her next parole review is in March 2030. Investigators believe Saldívar planned the murder for weeks, buying the gun after being confronted about embezzling money. And on March 31st, today of 2026, Chris Pérez posted a heartfelt message honoring Selena, calling this time of year always difficult, but he expressed melancholy mixed with gratitude and said it's incredible how Selena's story continues to grow and unite people who weren't even alive when she died. He thanked fans for keeping her legacy alive with strength and pride. And despite rumors, Chris remains close to the Quintanilla family and continues to honor Selena publicly. The Grammy Museum opened a new exhibit dedicated to Selena, celebrating her as the Queen of Tejano. And the exhibit includes stage outfits, memorabilia, archival footage, personal items preserved by her family, and it continues to draw fans from all around the world, as it should. I always wanted to go there. I've never been to Texas, but if I do, I have to get to Corpus Christi. I would love to visit her grave. I know now there's a metal fence gate around it that's locked, but I would like to see it. I know at her funeral, thousands of people walked by, and at first they didn't want to open the casket, but they were afraid that fans weren't going to believe that she actually died. So the family ended up letting them have an open casket so all of her fans could come in and pay respects to Selena. I liked Selena. I always have. I remember seeing the movie when it came out, and I didn't know at the time who Selena was. I'm going to be 38, so, I was only 7 when it happened, so I really wasn't aware of who Selena was, but she still had a impact on my life. I grew up listening to her album, and I can sing her Spanish songs, but I can't speak Spanish. But for somehow listening to it over and over, I know how to pronounce the words for the most part. I'm not going to do it for you because I don't want to make a fool of myself, but I learned a lot of Spanish just listening to Selena, and she made it fun. She made music in a different language, but somehow I still understood her feelings behind it. And because she didn't just perform, she connected with her fans. And I could feel her emotions, even if I didn't know at the time when I was, 12, when I'd watched the movie. And I didn't really know her life that well. And I didn't know her strength and power behind her music. The older I am now, I read the meaning of a lot of her songs in Spanish, and they're just beautiful. She was full of love. She was full of light. And I love listening to her. I listened to her going to work today. My favorite song by Selena is I Could Fall in Love. I think that song is absolutely beautiful. And obviously, Como la Flor, I love that song. I love that she designed most of her, all of her outfits and really wanted to break through the fashion industry and didn't box herself as just a musician. She was an artist of many things, and everything that Selena wanted, she went after. There were no red tape with her. There was no boundaries she wasn't going to cross. And she worked hard for everything she wanted. And she wanted love. She wanted a family. She wanted music. She wanted fashion. And she was setting her life up. And unfortunately, it was taken at a very young age. And I believe she would have made multiple albums. I believe she would have been in movies and had a huge clothing line across the world and makeup lines and perfumes and probably would have set up a lot of upcoming female artists and mentored them. And I think she would have just accomplished so much. But I love watching her smile. She just has this energy that was happy. When I think of Selena, I know her favorite color was purple, but when I think of Selena, I think of red, I think of yellow, I think of just sparkles and roses and just happy things. You know what I mean? Like, even though her life ended in such tragedy, when I think of Selena, I feel happy. And she was beautiful. My God. I still watch videos. I watch documentaries. I've still watched the movie Selena with Jennifer Lopez. And I know her father passed away not so long ago. And I know there was a lot of things between Chris and Abraham, but I think they made amends towards the end. I know that the star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame said Selena Quintanilla, and there was a lot of uproar about that because they didn't put the name Perez on it. They may have replaced it with Perez. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But there was a falling out with Chris and Abraham. But as time went on, I think they patched things up and were civil. He is with somebody else now, Chris, but she knows that Selena was his best friend, was a big part of his life, that, the love of his life. And he doesn't hide that part. And he still talks about her and still loves her. But, he does have a new wife. And I couldn't imagine being that young, finding the love of your life, and then just being ripped away from you like that. When she pushed him to be a better version of himself and believed in him and loved him and didn't care that he was some metalhead with no name. She loved him for who he was. And I'm glad that she and he eloped, because she got her marriage. She got the love that she wanted and went against her dad's wishes, but was an adult and wasn't going to choose music over love or love over music. She wanted it all. Selena wanted it all, and she wasn't gonna settle. She knew she could love someone, and she knew she could still love music, and he wasn't going to distract her. And it all worked out in the end, but she was just taken away so fast. She was more than a voice, and more than a star, more than a headline, frozen in time. Selena was a young woman with big dreams and bigger than the stages she stood on. And she was joy in motion, kindness in human form, and proof that brilliance doesn't need permission to shine. Her life was stolen, but her light wasn't. Her music still fills rooms, and her smile still inspires generations. Her story still reminds us that representation matters, cultural matters, and love and legacy outlive violence. Selena deserved a lifetime, and she did. She deserved that love. She deserved that family. She deserved everything the world had to offer her, and the world deserved her. But what she gave us in 23 years, that she was alive and continues to 31 years later, that continues to echo louder than the act that ended her life. And today, I wanted to honor her by not just focusing on the moment she was taken, but by remembering everything she gave while she was here. And that was love, honesty, respect, integrity, passion, light, kindness, adventure, passion, laugh, warmth, empathy, beauty. That's what we remember Selena for. To the dreamers, to the fighters, the artists, and the young girls who see themselves in her, keep going. Selena showed us that our stories, our voices, and our cultures are powerful, and no one can take that away. Thank you, Selena. And thank you for listening to True Crime with Tiff Klein, giving criminals the disrespect they deserve.